like working with veterans?
Well, we're veterans ourselves in our own right. So, and we understand what it's like not to be around that confusion and some of the stories that come out of that. And I really don't want to say post-traumatic stress, because that can be very hard, but at the same time, we know what a lot of vets go through, especially when they stop serving, and that's really when the pain starts. Not so much physical pain, but emotional stress of starting a new job or whatever else. But really the big thing for me was lack of management, lack of leadership. And I think that's one of the things that veterans need. They've had that.
Yeah, the camaraderie and hearing stories, man. There's some really interesting stories.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you served or what you served. I mean, everybody's got a unique story that came out of the military. It's interesting as hell once you get somebody to open up and start trusting you enough to share some of their experiences. That's what I like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that too. And then when you have that camaraderie out here, especially in nature, I think that relieves a lot of that stress.
Mm-hmm.
And that they find out that everybody else is going through the same thing,
mm-hmm.
you know, and this is nothing new.
Well, now there's a network.
Yep.
Doing expedition work, kind of nature experiences, right, where nature acts as the therapist with Green Berets was a mind shift, because you do think these guys aren't going to be able to tap into that emotional component that's needed. They're not going to be able to match the softness that's sometimes needed, especially with kids, that encouragement component, right? And I have been blessed and very lucky to have partnered with Matt and Chris, because they not only bring the best of what Green Berets have to offer, which is a level of grit and resilience that you can't touch, to just endure something, right? That's unmatched. Watching them impart that on kids, tapping into some of those emotional reserves, or making those metaphors, if you will, about life and toughness and resilience, and how taking one step in front of the other with this heavy ruck, right, or weight on your shoulders, how you can actually get to the next phase. And they're not only talking to the kids about this, but they're showing them, which is that much more powerful, because now it's a tangible experience.
Being the daughter of a military family, definitely you see the different side of military life. It's not as romantic as movies portray. There's family issues, definitely grief, not seeing your family for months at a time, a bunch of unknowns. Sometimes you don't even get to know your parents, mom or dad.
So the other day I was discussing with some people about how Special Forces operators operate. I know that sounds cheesy, because that's the way it comes across as, okay, operator alert. But a lot of them, when you find the mentality that some people have to know what's next, seeing part of the military for 25 years and Special Forces, and then transitioning over to the civilian world, a lot of civilians, they know what's next. They know what their life is. Well, in Special Forces, you learn to disconnect from all of that, and you don't know what's next, and it becomes how you operate, how you just attack what comes next. And when you can separate from that, when you can take apart from that and say, hey man, I don't care what's next, because I know that my teammates are going to help me. And so you attack everything the same way and with the same vigor. And when you learn to do that, then you basically become unstoppable.
So being a veteran's kid, especially when you have two parents who are Air Force, you have it's a lot different than being a kid, like a civilian kid, because when you have parents in the military, you need to know that you're not going to live somewhere you can't have your whole life planned in one location, because you're going to move. You're not going to set, deep roots. That's something that you have to do. You have to learn how to make friends quickly. You set a plan and you commit and you follow through, and that's how you get by.
When you're in the shit, you get that 1,000-yard stare.
You don't quit. You're never taught to quit. That's not an answer in like any situation.
You become resilient and you become adaptive.
How many Green Berets does it take to set up a one-man tent? I was thinking. Samantha.
Oh, why?
What are you doing?
I'm sleeping.
How?
Okay.
Look at you. This isn't even really like... Samantha, you like a little pea in a pod.
Here's another. Vets, when they're in the military, are trained to a very high level. It doesn't matter what their job was. They're trained to a very high level, whether they're a truck driver, whether they're a supply dude, or whether they're in the medical field. It doesn't matter what MOS they had. They're trained to an extremely high level. If they try to carry that training outside of the military, I did truck driver. The truck driver analogy. If you're a truck driver and you're deployed overseas, you're going up and down main supply routes, alternate supply routes. You got to be ready for ambushes, IEDs, all of this type of stuff, and you're driving a truck on horrendous conditions. So they come back here, they get out of the military, they expect to have a little bit of respect at their abilities. And because they don't have a specific license, which the military generally doesn't help them get because they don't want them leaving after they've trained them, they got to start from ground zero again. I don't know if that's answering why, but it's understanding what they go through and just some of the transition. It's a sort of a kick in the gut when you're a master of your craft, especially better than most of the people that they're probably working with, but they got to go and earn their dues again when they've already earned those dues in spades.
It really helps you see and understand how resilient you really can be and you really are.
Yeah, I was sleep deprived one evening. This is during the Desert Shield, Desert Storm, first Gulf War. We were just moving so fast because we were just killing the enemy so fast that the front lines were moving so fast because everything was so fast. I was driving one night. I was a driver at that time because I think I was on like a PFC or something. But I think I was up for like almost 30 hours.
This is before you were in SF.
Yeah. And I looked over to the right. I was just driving for the platoon sergeant. He was asleep. I was the only one awake because it was only me and him in the vehicle. And I looked over. He was asleep. Looked past him. I seen a tank. And this could have been real. Okay, we never know. Okay, this could have been real. And I swear to you it was real. That tank came off the ground like this vertically. Okay, some afterburners took off and that thing went just like the Millennium Falcon. I am not kidding you. I blamed it on my sleep deprivation, but stranger things have happened in war.
That could have been, okay. That could have been some next level shit.
It might have been.
Have you ever next leveled?
Have I ever not? Did it have a triangular shape?
No, it looked like an M1.
It did?
It was a tank. Yeah. It didn't look like a Millennium Falcon. Yeah. You know?
But it flew like one.
It flew like one. Right off the ground.
With going rucking and being able to, live in nature as they do in the military, you're able to kind of see like what your parents went through. You kind of realize like, oh, so this is what my mom did, this is what my dad did. And then that's something that you kind of learn, you can relate to them.
What's the name that was on that camper when we were coming up here? Solitude. The Solitude.
I thought you were going to say leprechaun.
I've seen one of those too. You remember the night we almost seen a leprechaun?
Yeah.
I could swear I seen a leprechaun that night. I was so tired.
I think another fun thing about being on here is really getting rid of that stereotype. Not trying to brag, but I was on some military big buff guys' asses the whole time. Like, you can keep up, you definitely can.
What's the first rule of being an operator?
Looking cool.
What's the second?
Operating.
These expeditions, they really switch up your perspective of life. You get to see it from the wilderness and how everything works together versus everybody in household doing completely different lives. But out in the wilderness, you all have to work together. You have to work with other people to achieve a goal.
If they're about to be deployed or if they're just coming home from a deployment, the family's not it's not in the forefront of their mind. And that's something that you just need to accept, pretty much, and you roll with it. You know, hey, like my dad is going off to war, or he's just coming home. He's gonna need some space. And it's one of those things where you can't really talk about it because it's such a personal thing for them. But you know that there's something there.
In that veteran community, when you take anybody out into an experience that is wilderness based and you're rucking, right, and you're doing the outdoor camping, you're going to see some steps that occur emotionally, right? There's that excitement right away, kind of that unknown, a little apprehension. You start to wonder, am I made for this? Especially if you don't sleep well, right? Kids, when we had them out for this expedition, it was cold. We were up at 2 a.m. huddled by the fire. A lot of breakdown, like, I can't do this. Followed by then, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna make this work? Okay, so you start to see the growth. You start to see the ones that are really leveraging their leadership skills and that resilience component, helping the ones that maybe are newer to that piece. When the weather got cold and adversity set in and you couldn't argue, you can't argue when it rains, what are you gonna do? There's no manipulation around it, right? You have to accept it. So there's an acceptance that happens. How am I gonna get through this? So having Matt and Chris kind of navigate those conversations with the kids and bring in their skill sets was really powerful to watch too, and having these kids accept that advice and follow those ideas and work together so that now day 2 we've got those heavy rucks on our backs, but there's a comfort setting in. We're teaching some skill sets and we're still seeing that progression where the breakdowns are occurring because physically the work you're doing is demanding, but you aren't falling apart and you're being encouraged by the people that now consider you kind of amongst that group, right? So that camaraderie piece. And it's powerful, it's rewarding.
You're not videotaping me
So-
laying down like this.
No.
Going into this knowing that Green Berets were the ones leading our hike, it's not something that like my mental health was really comfortable with, because I knew that if they were Green Berets leading, I wouldn't be able to express any, weakness or anything like that. When I say weakness, I mean, mental health, something that's not like a strong brick wall. But Matt and Chris, they weren't what you would think. Like, I was expecting military men who, no laughing, no kidding around, just pretty straight to the point military guys. But these are not those guys. When they start to open up, when they start to talk around the campfire, it's nice. You realize that these are people just like you or me, and these are people who can laugh. They're not like funny jokes, but they can tell jokes.
So I've been in a lot of places and done a lot of things, but there's one thing that holds true through all of it, thick and thin: the good old Twizzler. Now, with that said, every good operator has to have a bag of Twizzlers with him. Somebody goes, "Does that guy really have a Twizzler?" And I said, "Yep, I do." Took a bite of it just like that. So if you're going to be a real operator, you got to get you some Twizzlers. Tip of the day.
They're just genuinely cool people. You know, Matt taught us the tourniquets. He taught us Israeli wraps. Chris taught us how to tie those Swiss knots to get across the one-rope bridge. They kept us safe. They kept us on target. They weren't stern. Well, they were stern in the way that a father is stern. And it's comforting, and it was really nice. Being outside with your friends, and even people you don't know, making new friends, it's freeing. Mental health or anything surrounding mental health is heavily stigmatized in the military, to the point where our parents are taught to not talk about it. They're taught to repress it, because if you don't, that could hurt your career. Veteran kids like myself, where we do struggle with mental illness, but we can't express it, because expressing it is a sign of weakness. And when you are weak in a military household, it's not something that is addressed. It's something that's pushed to the side and said, toughen up, get over it. And we still struggle with that. It doesn't go away when you push it down. We're not taught how to express our emotions. We're taught how to put our emotions away. And then we come into the world with civilian kids, and we're seen as, sassy or confident, haughty, just not super approachable. And that's something that we want to be. We want to have people to talk to, but sometimes we can't, because we're taught differently at home. It's part of the gig of being a veteran's kid.
All of that combines to be a really powerful experience, and that's why anything that you can do outdoors and letting outdoor and nature be the therapy is very powerful.
You can write a movie off of that shit.